Hey everyone, well, situation update, what's going on globally, operations, a lot of stuff you heard about. Another arrest connected to Epstein. People are really in shock, but there's a lot of wires and cables directly to what's happening in the UK. Very dark stuff connected to all of this stuff. Royal family connected to Peter Mendelsohn. But he got arrested. Really interesting. So we'll get into that story. We'll get into what's really happening in Mexico. The military was involved. You know, people are breaking that news, but I already told you that was really happening. Let's just kind of start off with really important to understand. Really important. I was telling you that there's current investigations inside of Switzerland connected to the banking infrastructure. Now, these investigations have been kind of going on and off for the past almost 12 years. These investigations that's been happening there. The reason why this is important, and the reason why now the Trump administration, like I said, there's operations with the United States military, with the United States Department of Justice, with white hats inside of Switzerland, with the military inside of Switzerland, whatever military that they have their intelligence. They have these huge operations of exposing the banking systems connected to the globalist operations, to the drug trade, all of these different things, money laundering between countries that's connected to the stolen election, the Davos group. The reason why Trump went directly to Davos to confront them, to let them know that the election stuff is going to be resolved, their arrests are coming. And then earlier last year, Trump gave them the information that he knows that, you know, the United Nations is really, really corrupt for creating invasions, and he's talking about the United States. Those are military comms that he has to give them, because those goes into the world courts, that goes into the systems there. So getting back to this, that there are whistleblowers from Switzerland underneath military protection inside of the United States. That's elite. Those are powerful whistleblowers inside very powerful families, like I said, connected to also to the banking system. Now, what's going on? I've been really telling you, like the past 2 years, I said the military is going to go after the Rothschilds. These operations of Trump is going to go after the Rothschilds. And I kept giving the information, even last year, I said the Rothschilds, this is all going to happen. So now we're at this point to where the Rothschilds are being implicated inside of the Epstein files, because this goes back to the Rothschild banks inside of Switzerland. And what they're doing is hiding a lot of American money. The Department of Justice was looking to this over 10 years ago. They were trying to figure out everything, what was going on there. So the Rothschilds were having a problem with the United States government. This is going on through Obama's term. So the Rothschilds reach out to Obama, and they send over Kathy Rumler, which is the big counsel. You know, that she's, like I said, Kathy Rumler is the person that's talking with Epstein, sending over 30,000 emails, some of them up to 4 or 5 times a day, communicating with Epstein. She calls him uncle, all of these nicknames for him. So now Kathy Rumler from Obama, they set up these operations between Epstein, between the Rothschilds bank inside of Switzerland. Now, what the papers it has the financial statements in there, is that the Rothschilds didn't hire lawyers. They didn't hire these powerful firms inside the United States. They didn't hire all of these international lawyers from Switzerland. They didn't hire any lawyers. The person that they hired to create a settlement on the behest of Obama, sending Kathleen Rumor, and Kathleen Rumor said, get Epstein. Epstein can create a deal with the Department of Justice. So Epstein brokers a deal between the Rothschild banks, and they transfer money into the United States to the Department of Justice to pay them off. And they pay off the Department of Justice over $45 million. And for Epstein doing his work, he charges the Rothschilds $25 million. It's really important because the public gets to see this.
So in all of the Epstein files, what is the craziest email that you feel like everybody missed?
The most interesting email is this connection of the House of Rothschild to Jeffrey Epstein. Edmond de Rothschild, at the time, was facing a problem with the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice was alleging that Edmond de Rothschild, the bank in Switzerland, was helping wealthy Americans dodge taxes. So what they decide is that they'll pay a fine. Now, to negotiate that settlement, they hire two individuals, Kathy Rumler and Jeffrey Epstein. He says, I think you will find 45.5 penalty, that's 45.5 million, legal 10 million for legal fees to Kathy, me 25, all less than 80, pretty good. They paid 45.5 million to the Department of Justice. Epstein was paid 25 million to broker that deal. The reason why this puts it all together for me is you have the Rothschilds negotiating with the American Justice Department. Who do you hire? There are 10 law firms which you hire. You don't hire Jeffrey Epstein unless you're hiring him for a reason.
There's so much stuff, you guys, happening inside of Congress, inside of Senate, inside of Department of Justice, from the FBI to national intelligence, inside the Pentagon. There's so much people working, even though you might not see it. But everybody's working on this Epstein stuff, the release. Everybody's creating a bunch of different data points. A lot of these different places of where they're sourcing information for investigations that they're doing. Kash Patel, behind the scenes, the FBI, the White Hats are working vigorously. Inside the Pentagon, they're running operations in between countries, moving information over to the UK. They're working with different countries, running information. It's huge. It's gigantic, you know. Don't even think that nothing's going to happen. Like right now, all this stuff that's coming out is for the public to see it, for the public to get angry, for the public to demand justice, for the people to stand up, to rise, to fight for the truth, from the UK to Iran, all the way into Mexico, into the United States. There's a lot of operations to expose the corruption that's happening everywhere. Now, getting back to this Epstein stuff, what's happening over inside of the UK, it's just gigantic, you guys. As you know now, you heard about another very high-level person working with the Prime Minister that was underneath the Prime Minister who elected him, put him in place, sharing classified information with Epstein, connected to Britain's financial systems, giving inside information and a lot more classified information that's eventually going to end up coming out. But you heard that there was an arrest today, and the police are going through a couple of different places, different storage units that he has. That's all happening right now. Those storage units are being they're checking inside of the UK that's connected over to Peter Medelson. And then, of course, those computer servers, everything's being tracked. Now, inside of the United States, the same operations are taking place inside of New Mexico, California, Arizona, and in Florida. They're going through all of these different storage units and they're finding a bunch of computer systems. They're finding a bunch of servers. They're finding videotapes. This is all happening behind the scenes. Eventually somebody's going to break this story. But there's a lot more videos, a lot more servers. And Epstein was using regular storage facilities to store these in different places and inside of different homes inside of New Mexico and Arizona. And it's such a really twisted, dark story as you're hearing about the exposure of the Rothschilds connected to Epstein. Certain family members inside of the Rothschild, telling Epstein about these hunting parties. People are, talking about all of these things about moon crickets, which is another term for African people, African American, black people. And they're having all of these different hunting parties that's going on. And there's a couple of different emails and people are getting into all of that stuff. And you have Jessie Savoter, who was a survivor. She's coming back. She's trending. She's talking about all of these parties, how she escaped, what happened. So that's beginning to trend over in TikTok also.
At the hunting parties, they would, they'd have all these expendable children outside in the woods, and usually they have holding grounds, like a tunnel system or something underground where they hold the kids in cages until the time of the hunt.
But years ago, I gave you a lot of information, even David Steele, one of the great patriots who passed away, David Steele, he passed away in the hospital. What happened? He was sick. He went there to a hospital. But what eventually happens, if you're a powerful patriot and you're moving a lot of information, or else you're someone that is in opposition, a high-level person, you're in opposition to the globalist operations, or you're a whistleblower, or you're like David Steele, who had a lot of powerful information, and he had a movement behind him. He was exposing all of these different operations, from the pedo stuff, satanic stuff, to the adrenal stuff. He was giving a lot of stuff. He went to the hospital. He passed away quickly. The same thing with our friend Kristen. The same thing that happened also with her. Anyways, what they usually do is you get to the hospital and they take you, they take you into the hospital. They do your blood work, checks few stuff. They say, we'll get back to you tomorrow. We're going to check. But they're running you through a data system, who you are. They're running that up to the upper elites, to the intelligence agencies. Then the deep state gets a hold of the information. And if you're a major threat, then eventually, wherever you're at inside that hospital, they take you out with heart attack, weapons, all kinds of stuff that they can poison you with. So, and that's not only the hospitals. A lot of these conspiracies is much bigger that people still think it's conspiracies. We're talking about culinary art schools, even things connected to what people call the CIA, which is the Culinary Institute of America. This huge, gigantic, powerful place in the U.S. that, where they train all of these different chefs that go into all of these Michelin star restaurants, the most exquisite restaurants around the world. And they train and they become the head chefs, and they're working for all of these globalist operations. What's really happening behind the scenes is these places, like these powerful top culinary schools. Some of these powerful people that are being set into different countries, they're also running operations to very powerful people that come in, very powerful people that are making reservations, billionaires, millionaires, very influential people that come to these powerful restaurants. And what happens is they poison them. And eventually 2, 3, 4 days later, these people pass away. They end up dying. So it's gigantic. That's why it's really dangerous. It's really dangerous out there for powerful, people who are telling the truth, people who are sharing the real information on what's going on. If they happen to go to a hospital and then they run your name through the data systems, it's gigantic. And it's big because you guys are all hearing about all of this stuff about, human harvesting, what they're doing to the organs, organ harvesting. That's become a huge, gigantic topic that's been trending even more the past year. That story's been growing. So anyways, let's get back to this. The Rothschilds now are inside the crosshairs. Everybody's talking about the Rothschilds. Senate's talking about it. Congress is talking about it. The White Hats, the good people. This information's out there that there's corruption with Obama, Kathy Rumler again, connected to the Rothschilds, to the Switzerland banking systems, connected to the Rothschilds controlling the Department of Justice, paying them off. So this is all going to grow slowly, but don't think nothing's going to happen. But when we're talking about these things of the Rothschilds, we're talking about these powerful organizations connected to the United Nations, connected to the Davos Group, connected to world banks, connected to the European banking systems inside of France, inside of Switzerland, many different places where they work with a lot of smaller banks of where they're running a lot of operations of world money laundering operation systems connected to the BIS. So that's kind of what's happening. You're actually seeing it. The Rothschilds are being implicated heavily inside of these files. About a week ago, the United States government started redacting the Rothschilds' names, and they're trying to. Somebody in there is still trying to cover up some stuff, trying to hide a few things with the Rothschilds. So people are been talking about that for about a week and a half right now. But there's more files coming. There's more files coming, more videos, more things is going to unfold all in a powerful, strong way, you guys. So this is huge because we're talking about the UK. We're talking about these powerful elite leaders connected to Epstein, connected to corruption, connected to cover-up. We're talking about Starmer, the prime minister. This is all leading towards him. What's going to be unveiled in the next 12 months to come is big for the UK. This is what we're talking about. All of these different gangs throughout the UK connected to immigrants, people from all over different countries from India to Pakistan, several Middle Eastern countries. And they have these gangs in the UK throughout many different places of different foreigners from the Middle East, from India, all the way up to Pakistan, different countries, of where they're connected to these gangs that are assaulting citizens inside of the UK, inside of Britain. And it's recorded that over 250,000 women so far have been assaulted, been killed inside of these operations throughout all of these different cities through Britain all the way up into the UK. And there's a huge, gigantic, massive cover-up. And Starmer, the prime minister, is the person that was kind of covering up everything. He was stopping the investigations of what was going on. A lot of the women that were coming forward were being arrested. Their families were being arrested. Now, the really dark side of this that people are talking about, from Tommy Robinson down to Alex Jones to Intel, the real cables that's really dark is a lot of these victims, a lot of women, a lot of people that are missing, connected to these different restaurants, fast food restaurants they're talking about. It's a horrible subject, guys. Bear with me. We're going to get through this. But we're talking about humans being killed. And then inside of these restaurants, inside these fast food restaurants, they're taking the body apart. They're grinding it. And they're putting it with the food from places with kebab. There's whistleblowers. There's witnesses inside intelligence reports. Now, this isn't brand new. This was going on for a long time. This was going on under Prince Charles when he was a prince. This was going on with the military intelligence behind the scenes. This was going on with the Britain military at the higher levels, that's dating all the way back to the early 1900s, but going back all the way back to these dark satanic operations, while dating all the way back to these different societies of different Freemasons at the highest levels, what people also call some of the Illuminatis, these secret societies, you know, the Odd Fellows, these different powerful elite secret organizations. This is all dating back to the people through the military who created Europa, you know, this European Union, and they're the one who put people into power. But the whole European Union system was actually connected. I've told the story before. It was connected over to trafficking, you know, adults, kids. I always have to watch my word for a few things here. So sometimes when I'm talking, I'm kind of making mistakes because it's Patreon. So I have to be very, very careful what I'm saying. So sometimes when I'm speaking, I stop and I'm using these different words that I'm trying to use. So that's what the European Union was essentially created for, was for human trafficking all the way in from Moldova, Ukraine, Romania, different places, Bulgaria, and then controlling all of the different places inside of Europe, the European Union, that was connected to investigations, police departments, law enforcement, and then connected to so many things, connected to transport. But this is all connected over to, of course, you know, financial system, money laundering, blackmail, all of this stuff is all connected to it, to the European Union, of how it was initially created. So talking about these really dark things that's really satanic, really evil. We're going back a little bit back to Jimmy Savile, what people say was the most prolific person who was running the pedo ops, the best friend of Prince Charles. So you have Prince Charles, who becomes King Charles, and King Charles' best friend, Jimmy Savile, who was doing all of these crazy things inside of hospitals, inside of education sectors, inside of these places that he had his own dungeon. You know, he had his own dungeon, his own torture dungeon. And he did all of these crazy things. It's just gigantic. It's a whole story. Many of you know about Jimmy Savile. So Jimmy Savile's friends with King Charles. King Charles's brother, you know, Prince Andrew, connected to this. Prince Andrew being arrested. There's a lot of cables connected to this. To what I'm really hearing is the intel report from it's hard to talk about because it's really crazy with this stuff, and I'm trying not to get censored. So the real cables that's coming out with these investigations that's going on over in the UK is that Peter Medelson, Prince Andrew, they're connected to all of these servers, and then also a lot of old videotapes that's dating back to the 80s into the 1990s with videotapes. And those videotapes also been transferred over to digital media. But it has a lot of officials dating back to the 80s, dating back to the 90s, dating back to the 2000s. Jimmy Savile's in the video. Different powerful princes are in the video. Royal families in the video. Military, the whole shebang. Lots of people are on those videos, those tapes. So now everybody's scared over in the UK, because when we're talking about these videos, the darker side of these videos, you're hearing about that inside the Epstein stuff. The satanic part where people are eating humans, the stuff that we've been talking a long time, that this is all going to come out. And I told you that the United States government was going to give this to you. And I said this weeks ago, and now we're inside of these Epstein files. So this is what it's all leading up to, what's happening inside of the UK. That's gigantic. Not only was Starmer allowing all of these different gangs, different locations, these different syndicated operations of allowing them to kidnap young girls, kidnap boys, to assault them in many ways, and then also to murder them, to get rid of them. And it's inside the food, a lot of the stuff. So this is all going to grow, you guys. It's gigantic. It's the gross part. This is the gross part. That's the biggest conspiracy that nobody wants to really talk about. It's really dark. We're talking about how it's possible to have all of this meat that we have, processed meat through the world. All of this processed meat, you know, it's getting to that. It's getting to that part of the story that's really going to sicken people, gross out people. And we're going to be heading into that this year. That story is going to keep on developing as things keep on coming slowly. That's why the United States government is kind of hiding some things. They're sitting on that. They have to let people know how dark all of this is, from the coup to the elections to creating the wars to human trafficking, all of these pedo operations, elites, now in these stages, because it's going to eventually come back to major corporations around the world, that what they were doing with the dead bodies, disposing of it, and how they were putting that inside of the food that we eat, inside of the things that's inside of restaurants. You heard about the McDonald's stuff. You heard about the kebab stuff. You heard about a lot of these processing food plants throughout the world doing this stuff inside of China, what they're really doing there. So this is the really dark stuff, but those are the real cables that's coming from inside of from Britain, the stuff that they're uncovering, that Middleton Prince Andrew was caught with, these videotapes, these files. There's a bunch of it. And not only that, there's a whole bunch inside of the United States. So you can see the military operations really happening as it's the FBI, Department of, I want to mention that was the Department of Homeland Security. Also, they're taking raids that's connected over California, over to New Mexico. And they're looking at all of these different places, because the reason why the Department of Homeland Security is involved, because they have to see who's in the video, you know, who's there, what's happening, because it could be very, very, very powerful figures inside of the government or inside of different countries, and them being on the video. You know, that's a national security crisis for many, many, many things that can, you know, it's just gigantic. It's gigantic, because if a certain name shows up in there, people can get so crazy inside the United States, create riots. People could say that's fake. Trump made that up. That's all AI again. One major name could cause chaos. Then at the same time, all the liberals making AI videos, and it could create a massive civil unrest because everybody's going to want to know the truth of that person, that major powerful name, whether it's in the United States, inside of Europe, something really, really dark, but especially what they did. Can you imagine what Obama was doing, what Biden was really doing? All of these really, really, really dark stuff that's connected to the darkest things that we're talking about. What Hillary Clinton was doing. So everything's in stages, you guys. You're seeing this global empire of the deep state cabal collapsing. The exposure of the Rothschilds, like I said, it was coming. This was a huge, gigantic part of the plan, the exposure of the Rothschilds. I've been really vocal the past 2 years about this. I said, this is coming. You're going to hear about all of this stuff with the Rothschilds. It's going to keep on growing. And the end of this, it's going to lead on over to the Rockefeller families. And that's going to be even bigger of what's happening inside the education system, the poisoning of foods. It's big to the pandemic. Everything that you can even imagine, to the music industry. So that's where we are at this moment right now. Another major arrest. The Rothschilds directly involved. Raids going on inside of the United States. That story is probably going to end up breaking. Raiding all of these different facilities, these different storage units, some houses. And it's huge. It's happening in different regions across the United States. Then all of these hunting parties, it's all inside the Epstein files, the Rothschild hunting parties. David Steele talked about this. I've talked about that. The Rothschild estates, inside the forces that they own, those powerful parties. Dick Cheney, like I said, Dick Cheney was really into these things also with the Rothschilds. The really dark side of Dick Cheney, what he was doing, the person who helped facilitate 9/11. This guy was absolutely atrocious as a human being. And you're hearing some of the most darkest things, like we've covered from the Bush family, George Bush Jr., part of these satanic cult operations, what he was doing to little kids, torturing them. Really, really dark stuff. And you're hearing about everything that you guys don't want to hear about. And it's kind of growing. And I try not to show images, but every now and then I'll just give a little bit of video, a little bit of stuff for context, because you can always find that on your own. It's everywhere. A lot of different videos, images, people doing deep dives on the Epstein stuff, talking about it every day, every hour, going on it, showing the next videos. It's too heavy for me, and I don't want you guys to also feel that, get that vibrations off of this channel. Giving you just enough information more about the storm operations, and I give you enough of the stories for context to let you know of kind of what's happening.